A little chaotically, as usual. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Again. How are you doing, Larry?
I'll put the mirror under my nose, breathe, so you can see I'm alive.
Unlike the
Oop, lost you there.
right?
Unlike
Yeah.
who?
Unlike the F-18 Super Hornet that just decided that life was too short.
Yeah, man, jumped off. Couldn't take any more. Jumped off the deck. Yeah, that. I guess the aircraft carrier was hauling ass, trying to avoid getting hit by a Houthi missile, and the plane got, didn't have it properly secured, and boom, overboard. $70 million worth. That's like 2 Predator drones.
Well, plus the Predator drones that were shot down.
Oh, they've shot at least the Houthis in the last. So it's 6 weeks since March 15th, and they've shot down 7. And so they're doing about 1 a week, a little bit more than 1 a week.
That's starting to get expensive.
Yeah, those that costs over $210 million right there.
We have to start discussing what can we buy with $210 million. For sure, some good houses like Zelensky's, but
you could buy at least in some upscale neighborhoods 210 houses.
Upscale neighborhoods.
Yeah, not some shack, not some one-room shack with 1 bathroom. We're talking, 4,000 square feet, 3 or 4 bathrooms, 3 or 4 bedrooms. People would be living large with a pool
next to the Kardashians.
Yeah.
Just for bonus.
Yeah, it's a lot of money that could be used to make people's lives better, but instead we're pissing it away in the Red Sea.
Yeah, I had other things to start, but since we started with the Red Sea, Iran and US talks, Larry. We just had the 3rd round, which seemed that had some progress, but still not some breakthroughs. And they're already talking about the next round. So yeah, we actually living week by week, Saturday by Saturday.
That's right. That's the good news. They've agreed to have another round, fourth time. So that's a month of talk as opposed to going to war. Now, what concerns me is that Trump is drawing down troop presence in Syria. Maybe this is a preventative measure to lower the U.S. footprint in the event that they are going to launch an attack on Iran, and then give one less target for the Iranians to hit. I can't rule that out. But for right now, Iran is willing to make a deal. And they're willing to make a deal that they would give up all enrichment except for the low level in order to get sanctions lifted. Now, will the United States take that deal? They should. Rational thinkers, they should. Trump should. But I would predict, and this is why I hope I'm wrong. When people come back and say, "Man, you were wrong. That is a crappy prediction." But I think Trump ultimately will walk away from the deal and will insist that Iran do things that Iran's not going to do, such as eliminate all of its missile stock and end all contact with Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis.
How many times does a country leader has to get, whacked and destroyed and persecuted by the United States so they can learn that they cannot trust, getting rid of weapons?
But people, they're not paying attention.
Looks like this time is the charm.
Yeah, well, this time, I keep hearing people say, Iran right now is in a much weaker position. Oh, that's nonsense. Compared to 10 years ago, 10 years ago, Iran was actually pretty isolated. Russia and China both were willing to impose sanctions, Western-led sanctions on Iran. Iran was embroiled in a new war in Yemen. that's backed by the United States and the CIA. And they were embroiled in the war in Syria, trying to help Bashar al-Assad fend off radical Sunni Islamists that also were backed by the West. So they were in no great position, and so they were desperate to get the economic sanction relief. So that's one of the motivations that they agreed to JCPOA back then, the Joint Cooperation Program. So what happened, or Joint Cooperation Plan, that's what it is, JCPOA. And, you know, they got into it, and then the sanction relief was slow in coming, and Trump bugged out. I believe it was in 2018. Well, gee, coincidence. What happens in 2018? 2018 is when China and Russia come together with Iran and say, maybe we ought to start cooperating and working together and planning on joint military exercises. And so that first military exercise was held in March of 2019. Jump ahead now, we're 6 years later. Iran has signed a comprehensive security agreement with Russia. It continues to conduct an annual military exercise with both Russia and China. It is a member of BRICS. It's in a much stronger position. And it's launched 2 attacks on Israel in response to Israel attacks. The first was just to show that it could. The second was a demonstration where they actually unveiled hypersonic missiles that defeated Israeli air defense systems. So when you look at the status of Iran today, much stronger position, and yet they're willing to make a deal with the West. They're willing to say, hey, we don't need 20% or 60% enrichment. We'll stay content with 3.6%, but the sanctions have to be lifted. It's a deal that it's a very reasonable deal. We'll see if Donald Trump takes it. Like I said, I predict he won't. I think the man's a fool.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense to me. I'm Brazilian, so of course the things are, my perspective of seeing things are very different from, I don't know, the North American establishment or European establishment. It doesn't make sense to me that the country does not have the right, quote unquote, to produce its own nuclear fuel for its nuclear industry or medical industry. So, you know, I understand the fear of having an atomic bomb. I understand the idea that, yeah, well, perhaps we don't want everybody to have atomic bombs. I understand the thinking. Nonetheless, at some point, you can either completely roll over the country, or, you know, we see what Kim Jong-un did at some point.
Well, once North Korea got nuclear weapons, people basically backed off and left it alone.
Yeah.
And so there's a great incentive for some countries to try to get a nuclear weapon for that very reason. So people will back off and leave them alone.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is the United States is under Trump right now throwing a temper tantrum. You know, I watched a little bit ago Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and he made an audaciously stupid statement. China needs our market. Oh, they're going to have to come basically crawling back to us because they need us. Let me suggest that China doesn't need us at all. Will China suffer some economic pain by separating from the United States? Absolutely. But they won't suffer as much pain as we will. This is just incredibly stupid, but it's, you know, this is what Trump is doing now. I had great hopes that he had learned something from the political pressure, persecution brought on him over the last 7 years, hasn't learned a damn thing, not a thing. So, he is sowing the seeds of the destruction of his administration, and it'll be his own fault. It could have been different. Could have been radically. All he had, they're marking 100 days. What they should be celebrating right now is that he brought an immediate end to the war in Ukraine because he pulled out all U.S. support, all U.S. military and intelligence personnel, and he cut off the money. But he didn't do that. He's trying to force a ceasefire on Russia, and he'll never be able to. Russia will tell him to go to hell first, politely, but he can go to hell. We're not going to do that.
Like Lavrov did on Face the Nation.
Yeah. Well, again, Lavrov is very professional, very polite, but very firm. Trump could have taken credit for freeing all the hostages in Lebanon. In Gaza, and bringing an end to the Israeli slaughter, the genocide of the Gazans. But instead, he's further enabled Netanyahu's slaughter to go on. The genocide continues. And then with Iran, well, they could have had to deal with Iran before now. But he's held hostage, captive to the Zionist lobby. They are the most pernicious, evil influence in the United States, in my view.
At some point, someone has to put a stop on it, and most likely we're gonna see another Kennedy situation on that. So that I understand the man.
It's going to be Israel will put an end to itself. They're in the process of heading towards a civil war, and it's unfortunate that it seems to be the more populist element in Israel are these extremist Zionists like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and people like that. They're both, I would note, are convicted terrorists in Israel. But nonetheless, despite being convicted terrorists, they get to be in the government.
And just these days, they were in Washington, no? Or New York, Washington.
Yeah, New York.
New York.
They were hollering at Ben-Gvir. A bunch of a number of the Jewish members of that particular area who's walking around and were verbally assaulting him, and understandably so.
Yeah, I saw the video. It's at some point people have to realize that the word can be smart enough to separate the two things, Jews and Zionists,
right, to
a level, until the point they start to get pissed off with everybody,
right,
and just stop separating. It should be a good initiative for the Jewish community to start recognizing things are not going well in Israel and they need to be changed. Otherwise, people can start to turn against them. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Just to finish about Iran, we had this explosion on the port, and two things. Well, first of all, it looks a lot. Iran kind of said that it was malfunction and lack of safety, stuff like that. They wouldn't say for sure, but it really looked a lot like that one in Lebanon some years ago. I don't remember how many years ago.
That was ammonium nitrate fertilizer.
And I read somewhere that it was another ammonium nitrate fertilizer that blew up.
No, it wasn't. It was a rocket fuel, and it was improperly handled. So, there are many speculating that this could have been, a terrorist attack or, sabotage, and perhaps it was. I don't, I can't prove it one way or the other. But the other comments coming out from the government and even Russians who went down to investigate suggest it was just improper handling of hazardous material. So, it could be either that, but, that doesn't destroy Iran and it doesn't force regime change, which is what the West is keen on doing.
And it looks like it did not stop the negotiations. So if anyone planned that for boggling the negotiations with the US, didn't work that well as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very better deal. So Larry, moving a little bit to, I would like to talk about India and Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen. I was watching you with Andre today, and I was watching you with the judge yesterday as well. I haven't seen you talking too much about India and Pakistan. How do you see these things? Because it's very weird. The news are coming to me very weirdly. First there was this Pakistani defense minister that kind of said we've been a bad boy for some time.
No.
And
Get it straight. He didn't kind of say it. He said
he
we
said it
have been doing terrorist attacks and providing support to terrorist groups on behalf of the United States and the Brits for many years, and go back and recognize that Pakistan has been close ties with the Central Intelligence Agency going back over 65 years. It started with the U-2 missions that were flown out of a base in Pakistan over the Soviet Union. So him saying that, I think, was important. And I was going to address it here this week, that it can't rule out the possibility that attack in Kashmir, initially claimed by Lashkar-e-Taiba, the same group that carried out the attacks in Delhi that's 12 years ago now. But that they were paid for, inspired by, coordinated with the Central Intelligence Agency to do this, create an incident, to create tensions, to weaken India, to divert India's attention, because the United States wants to hurt India because of its relationship with both Russia and now with China and BRICS.
Yeah, what I found interesting, and that I totally agree that this was very important. That sound a lot like a de-escalation. Like yeah, perhaps it was us, but we were kind of forced to do that. So don't be so harsh. And the other day, I received some reports that India kind of tried to bomb a piece of Pakistan and missed by 100 kilometers and bombed its own city somewhere. So
yeah, we don't. There's not a lot of good information. I mean, look, to create these kinds of tensions is a dangerous game because both countries possess nuclear weapons. I think it will ultimately be contained. They're all doing what they can to flex muscle and look powerful. But I think they will avoid the temptation of escalating, going to war.
Yeah, that was more or less what I was thinking. Just perhaps waving to the world. Yeah, we are powers too. Remember us when you start to dividing the pie.
Right.
It's a good move. I would see like that. It's okay. Moving to Ukraine, Larry, we had you have amazing 3-part article in Sonar 21. Everybody follows sonar21.com, which, by the way, like, share, and subscribe the videos. We have to ask that. I'm sorry. You have a very interesting 3-part article, very detailed, about Ukrainian participations in exercises with NATO and NATO countries, and the US as well, US by itself. And I found very interesting because we've been saying for weeks now that Trump, as you said now, we are getting to 100 days. Trump should be, celebrating peace because he completely turned away from that, and it looks like he can't get away from the war.
Right.
And it looks like it is his war. It was not about taking, becoming the owner, owning the war, but it was already his war.
Well, yeah, he played a major role in preparing Ukraine to go to war with Russia. Because when you look at the history of NATO and U.S. European Command exercises, military exercises with Ukraine, how that relationship developed over from 1992 up to present day, you realize that from really 1995 on, Ukraine was basically a de facto member of NATO. And why do I say that? Well, they were not covered by Article 5, so they didn't have that Article 5 protection. They didn't have an automatic seat at the table at every NATO meeting necessarily. And they were under no obligation to make a financial contribution of a certain amount every year. However, the frequency with which Ukraine participated in and was used as a host nation for NATO exercises is shocking, because during the first decade of the 21st century, Ukraine was the 6th most popular country for NATO to use to host an exercise. In other words, NATO has 28 countries. So you'd think that if you said, give me the top 10 list of countries that hosted NATO or U.S. military exercises, that they'd all be NATO countries. Oh, no. There are 5, like Germany, Romania, Poland. I forget the Lithuania or the Baltic states. And then all of a sudden it's Ukraine and Georgia. I go, wow, who'd have thought that? So that's why I say that Ukraine was a de facto member of NATO. And as time went on, by 2007, the NATO had set up basically an official base, a designated facility at Yavoriv in western Ukraine, up against the Polish border. Under Donald Trump, the annual military exercises, particularly the one carried out in the Black Sea called Seabreeze, normally let's say that these military exercises were to promote defensive capabilities. That year was the first time that they stipulated that it was both for amphibious warfare and anti-submarine warfare. They were talking about fighting a war against Russia. There was no other enemy there to focus on. You actually had U.S. Marines landing in landing craft on the beaches of Ukraine along the Black Sea, in the Crimea, into areas that are now part of Russia. Also, during Trump's time in office, his first term, the B-52 bombers were allowed to fly along the Crimean coast. So Trump was absolutely up to his, whether he knew about it or not is a whole nother matter. If he didn't know about it, it means he didn't have control of his national security policy. If he did know about it, then, he's even more irresponsible than we thought. And it was during that 4-year period that the Ukrainian military underwent extraordinary growth. So by the end of Trump's term, the Ukrainian military had grown from a total strength of 330,000 to 1.2 million. That was under Donald Trump. If you're the Russians watching that, what are you going to conclude? That the United States is a threat? I know, yeah. Trump bragged that unlike Obama, who just sent blankets to Ukraine, I sent javelins. So he actually sent actual armaments that could be used to kill Russian soldiers. And now Trump wants to pretend that, oh, I'm just an innocent mediator, and Russia better declare a ceasefire. They're not going to declare a permanent ceasefire. It's not going to happen. Sergei Lavrov made it clear. Vladimir Putin made it clear on June 14th, 2024, in a speech to the Russian Foreign Ministry. He's reiterated that point. Lavrov has reiterated it. Sergei Rybkov, the deputy foreign minister, has said it again. Peskov, Maria Zakharova, she said it. So, the United States just isn't listening. And there was reported, I saw something on Telegram earlier, that Steve Witkoff is supposedly headed to back to Moscow to deliver a message. And, the message is that Russia has to accept a ceasefire. Well, that's not going to happen.
I don't even know how to comment on that. What else? Or else? What else? What? About this interview with Lavrov, Larry. How was the repercussion inside the United States? Because outside, we kind of cool. They are calling back not only that one, but the one that he gave to the Globo, the Brazilian outlet, just after that.
Yeah.
How do you see the repercussion? I saw that you mentioned that important on the judge. How do you see the repercussion of that inside the United States?
No,
does people actually watch Face the Nation yet?
No, not that many people. Not that many people have seen it. So it was an important gesture by Russia trying to communicate with the American public. It has not gone viral. It's gotten some attention, but not a lot. But it's there. At least it's on the record. That's all you can hope for.
Yeah, I couldn't say better, except for people like us that have YouTube channels and write blogs, or outside the mainstream media. I don't think anyone else mentioned the interview with Lavrov.
Yeah.
Nor the one with the Global, and the one with the Global is actually transcribed in the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, the official website. I found that.
Yeah, I think that interview took place on Sunday and it was published on Monday, correct?
Something like that, yeah. I came to know about this interview watching you guys, actually. I didn't know about it.
Oh, here. Well,
I don't follow crap media.
I figured you didn't know about it because the lights got turned off in Europe yesterday.
Oh, yeah. But not here in Italy. We have good lamps. Do you have anything to say about that? I mean, I wasn't even gonna ask because it's weird.
Well,
but I found something very interesting, Larry. I'll let you know then. I'll let you talk then I tell you.
No, you talk, then I'll listen.
Okay. I received the news because here in Italy nothing happened. Actually, I received the news via WhatsApp from a Brazilian friend with a fake news from CNN. I don't know if you see this one that was going around. It was a very fake news, but kind of believable. CNN Brussels, and it was talking about the biggest cyber attack of all times against Europe from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it was a fake news. In the end, they were talking about some Russian Navy exercises and some NATO admiral, which name was from 19th century British admiral, which was very fakey. But then, okay, that was a fake news. But then all the outlets, they were each one saying one thing. Well, this is some, atmospheric issue. The other one said it was a fire in France. The other one said it was malfunction or information system problem. But all of them were saying like, yeah, the cyber attack is not discarded. Nobody
yeah,
blaming Russia, but
right.
just saying, cyber attack is not off the table. And I found it interesting because that looked a lot like a psyops. First you blame Russia, and then yeah, that's a fake news. But everybody's already have Russia in the mind. Cyber attack from Russia, cyber
Mhm.
attack from Russia. What do you think about that and about what happened?
Well, it very well could have been a cyber attack. What I highlighted is the vulnerability of the electrical grid, at least in Spain and Portugal. Was Italy affected or not? I heard different conflicting reports.
No. Here, North Italy, nothing. Actually, the Italian outlets said that yeah, we didn't have any kind of problems, any kind of issues whatsoever.
Okay.
From what I read, it was southwest France, Spain, and Portugal as a whole, and a little bit of Belgium.
Okay. So, but what it highlights is, this crazy push. Oh, we're going to have green energy. Oh, great. Well, once it went down, there's no quick fix to get it back. So it is just, it exposes the vulnerability of societies now to this kind of disruption. And yet, have you ever lived without electricity?
I'm from Rio de Janeiro. I perhaps will say yes for a couple of days every now and then.
Yeah, well, but I mean,
But not live. Leave,
yeah,
not
yeah.
a
So
siege or something like that. Of course not.
I mean, when my wife and I lived in Honduras, in the Campo, in 1978, there was no electricity. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. You got kerosene lamps. As I think I told you before, I had running water, which was you'd go fill up a bucket, and then you'd run from the well back to the house. That was your running water. Okay, old-fashioned running water.
Not running water. You run with water.
Yeah, I run with water. Actually, it sounds like an American Indian name. I run with water.
Running with water.
Yeah.
On Netflix.
So it's just, modern society is very vulnerable. And, particularly if you can attack that electrical grid and actually take down the internet, commerce would come to a grinding halt. So, how do you order food for delivery if your credit card no longer works and you have no way to place the order online?
Exactly.
So
A friend of mine from Portugal that lives in Portugal, just when it was starting to come back, the energy, I was in the middle of live stream. He started texting me on WhatsApp and sent me a video. He was in the supermarket. Apparently, everybody went to the supermarkets, and they were getting weird stuff like food. Why they were not getting toilet paper?
yeah, well, that was the next step. The reason you get toilet paper is you're in deep shit.
That is.
Yeah. So
it doesn't help, but that's true.
We've got. Have you seen some of the memes that are floating around about Trump and Zelensky sitting in the Vatican?
No.
Yeah, so
I saw the picture, and that was mimetic enough for me.
Yeah, I was did an interview with a Russian channel a little bit ago, and they showed a picture of Tony Soprano sitting, talking to his nephew Chris, Christopher. They instead of Trump was Tony Soprano and Zelensky was Christopher. Yeah, pretty funny, I guess.
That, yeah, first thing that I thought was that picture is very. I know I could hear in my head,
Yeah,
but at the
yeah,
same
yeah,
at the,
yeah.
at the same time, Zelensky just looked that he was rushed to the principal's officer, and he was getting a good one from the principal. Th- That picture did not go well. If someone planned that,
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's pretty funny. That
no,
and
it was.
you saw Macron try to weasel his way into the meeting, and said, "Hell no." You know,
Get out. I don't know if you notice, Macron now has a tan, a very orangish tan. I think
hey,
he's using the same
you got the
parlor as Ronnie.
same light bed as Trump, tanning
Yeah,
bed.
exactly. No, that was. Do you want to comment about the? I mean, I was thinking about commenting about this Pope funeral, which was, very unfortunate what they did to the Pope funeral. But most interesting, it was Meloni's visit to Washington. Did you watch that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I watched. She, uh, she's the most attractive of the European leaders.
Well,
I mean,
not so hard.
she looks better in a dress than Macron does. Okay. Well, actually, I should take that back. We haven't seen Macron yet in a dress, but uh, we got to give him a fair shot. But much better than Ruta. I guarantee you that. I mean, good God.
Oh, yeah.
So, the what's sort of unfortunate about we go through this ritual of mourning the Pope as some sort of great man. Really? What did he do? What's his legacy? There's nothing that people are going to be talking about that he did, 50 years from now. They'll barely be able to remember even his name. It's like, uh, who was the Pope before John Paul?
No idea.
Thank you.
I will.
You prove my point.
Point proven. To be honest, I don't know the after one as well. And I'm not even talking about the real name. I'm talking the Pope name.
Yeah. Like Pope John Paul became iconic, both because of the assassination attempt, but and his he was symbolic of associated with the collapse of the Soviet Union, associated with Ronald Reagan. So they're, but this Pope Francis, 12 years in office, I guess. Did he bring peace? Did he take any brave, real courageous stands to stop some of the wars? I'd argue no. So, he apparently his biggest contribution was he stacked the conclave with a group of his sycophants, and that they will likely vote someone like him back into the papacy.
Yeah, I saw a very good article from a friend of mine about this the possible succession of the Pope. That was very interesting. I sent you. I don't know if you had time to read that one. It was a very interesting article. Analyzing everybody that was there, that is there right now, the ones that the Francis put on, around him, and the ones less popular on that. I mentioned the Meloni Trump meeting.
Excuse me.
No worry. Because just by chance, this week I was, checking YouTube first page, and it invited me, it put me to watch 2022 Gonzalo Lira's video,
Mhm.
and not this video, but then I have something that I remember Gonzalo Lira talked about that I was trying to search, but I remember it was on the Coach Red Pill, not in the channel that he basically deleted. But then I
Yeah, yeah.
found other videos on Rumble from him, and one of the videos was very interesting because it's something that we kind of say all the time, but not as well put as he did, where he says that, looking at geopolitics and political interactions pretty much looks like a high school dynamics.
Yeah.
You have the beautiful woman, you have the sports guy, you have the nerds, you have the goth, you have, the groups. And looking at Trump with Meloni, I figure out, people may say whatever they want about Meloni now, but she knows exactly what she's doing.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, she's not. She's not
pretty
stupid.
smart.
She is very smart. And she recognizes there's probably more to be gained by being aligned with Trump now than not. Like I said, Trump is his own. Trump has been given a historic opportunity to really be one of the most consequential president in American history. And instead of taking that opportunity, he's getting lost in pettiness and making some very, very bad decisions. In my view, particularly, not immediately settling the war with Russia and launching this unnecessary tariff war with China. They're betting the assumption of the Trump people is that China needs us more than we need them, and that China's going to come crawling back to us. They can't live without us. And you know what? It's sort of like, imagine, there's some Hollywood star, some leading man, let's say, just like Pierce Brosnan in his 30s. He's 38 and he gets hooked up with this hot 20-year-old. 10 years go by. She's now 30. She's still very attractive. Brosnan has now got a beer gut and, hasn't kept himself in good health. But has convinced himself, she can't live without me. Well, she goes out and finds a better deal. That's the relationship between United States and China. The United States thinks it's this hot young stud. Man, we're a fat bastard with a beer belly. And China, is China going to suffer some pain, economic pain? Yes. But China's political system is such that they're set up, they can absorb that pain because they're not a quote democracy. Whereas the United States, with where we got all these members of Congress who have to go up in an election in another year and a half, they're very fickle. And I think Trump has chosen to fight a battle he didn't need to fight. It's going to kick his ass.
Several battles at the same time. I mean, you can be big, but you cannot, just take everybody.
Right.
It's 70s and 80s Hollywood movies used to show that. Remember that 11 o'clock high or something like that? The big guy with the small dude with the British punch. It was very B movie. Inside the school, high school, there is this new bully.
Oh yes. My Bodyguard.
I'll get you outside. My Bodyguard.
Was it My Bodyguard? I think it was. Yeah.
I don't remember. I think it was 11 o'clock high, something like that. In Brazil it was called Catch You Outside. Because after the class they were going to fight.
Yeah.
And then the small guy just wins because it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Larry Johnson, my good friend, do you think we have something to? I think we had discussed a lot of important things today.
You lied at the outset.
It's-
Mentiroso. Mentira.
Mentiroso.
Yeah, you said, man, this is going to be short. I got to go to the airport. We've talked like almost an hour.
My wife was writing me here on WhatsApp.
Yeah, I said,
arrived.
hey, shut up. Get off the air. Get out
Get
here.
off.
Start the car. Okay. Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think we covered the waterfront. We had a good chat about all the key issues.
Okay, fantastic. Well, everybody, remember, if you like the video, like, share, subscribe. I learned that from YouTube SEO classes. You have to say that every video. Follow Larry on Sonar21, also on Rumble and BitChute, and on Counter Currents here on YouTube. And of course, all the outlets, the links are on the description, Judge Nap, Ania K, Through the Eyes, Nima, and I think that's it. No. Daniel Davis every now and then.
Yeah,
as well.
Daniel Davis, Nima, Judge Knapp, Marcelo,
the press of mass destruction.
Garland Nixon, do him occasionally.
Garland Nixon, exactly. I
Oh.
have to invite Garland Nixon eventually here. It would be
Yeah.
a very nice chat.
Yeah,
It would be cool.
I can connect you.
Oh, awesome. We got that done later. And yeah, that's it. Thank you
Okay,
very
man.
much, everybody. Thank you, man. See you next time.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.